Welcome to Eventful Endeavors, secrets to crafting the perfect celebration. If you're planning an event and looking for useful tips from industry experts, you're in the right place. So get ready to take some notes and we'll dive right in. This is Eventful Endeavors.
Hello and welcome. I'd like to welcome Brianne Ackerland to the podcast. She is a master certified wedding planner and certified wedding educator pro, and she is the owner of Stress Free Weddings, Inc. Brianne has been helping couples navigate the wedding planning process for over 15 years in Eastern Iowa and Western Illinois. She specializes in couples hosting Midwest destination weddings. Some of her achievements include 2024 Wedding Planner of the Year by Certified Wedding Planner Society and Most Helpful Wedding Planner of the Year in 2021. Additionally, she has consistently won Wedding Wire's Couples Choice for 9 years and the Knott's Best of Weddings for the last 7 years. And she is also in the Hall of Fame winner for the Knott's Best of Weddings, just to name a few, right? Well, welcome, Brianne. Thank you so much for being on. We're excited
Thank
to
you for
have
having
you.
me, Tina.
Absolutely. First, I just kind of want to see, ask why and how you started this business, and why did you choose wedding planning?
Well, it's a great story. I actually started planning events in high school. Our club had to do like dances and things for fundraisers, so we kind of got the bug way back in high school. But my brother and I decided to get married 6 weeks apart,
Oh,
and 20 years ago, and just kind of saw the catastrophe like unfold before us. Um, Trying to plan multiple weddings for families with two different styles
right.
and budgets and things, it just kind of showed me how things can go wrong, even if you are a very detailed person or if they're not, and how
Hmm.
somebody needs to help these people so that like my dad's suit coat didn't button for my brother's wedding and my cake showed up the wrong color. So when it came time to decide what I wanted to do after having two kids in 2 years, I was like, I would rather do something I enjoy than go back to the corporate world. And
Hmm.
it just kind of snowballed from a hobby into a career path once I found some good education that would kind of help develop my wedding planning hobby into a business.
Love it. Awesome. Well, let's chat about kind of your education then and this certification as well. So tell me about the master certification and the educator pro certification. I don't hear this very often, to be totally honest.
Absolutely. There's a lot of, event management courses or hospitality programs like in Iowa at the University of Iowa and Iowa State, but they don't
Cool.
focus primarily on weddings. So when I was looking for something to focus strictly on how can I assist couples and make sure that I know what I'm doing and I'm not just offering, extra help just to set out decor and things like that,
Right.
I started searching online. And at the time, the Bridal Society, as it used to be called, was actually offering the course in person. So I went to
Okay.
Chicago. They had it at the Hard Rock Hotel back in 2014, I think it was. And it was a 2 day, all day, and you left with your certification.
Nice.
Nationwide, they would kind of do it at different colleges and things, but this one just happened to be at a hotel because they were also offering venue certification for venue coordinators at the
Oh,
time.
very cool.
So through their program, they offered continuing ed, and that's how I got to the master's. And then a couple years ago, they were looking for educators, people that had a lot of experience that did this full time, but that could
Hmm.
also share some insight into new planners that were kind of
Hmm.
coming up, and how can we kind of just make sure that we're elevating the standard overall in the wedding planning industry since it's not really regulated. People can say they're a professional, they can say that they do this or I have
Hmm.
experience with this, but what supports that in relation to whatever business, florist, DJ, oh, I love it, but how
Hmm.
do I make sure that I'm a professional or a, entrepreneur at this and not just a hobby? So
Absolutely.
that education was just kind of a key fundamental source I wanted to make sure I had in my
Hmm.
business since I was only going to offer planning assistance, logistics, organization, and
Yeah.
execution, not a lot of the decor or other things people think of when they think of a wedding planner.
Okay. All right, cool. Now, how do you feel like that certification, both of those certifications, kind of make you stand out as a business?
100%. Again, not all wedding planners offer the same services, but for me, the education part, when I can tell that I've invested in myself and my experience, and I can talk to them about the network and the continuing ed that I provide
Mm-hmm.
for myself and my team. It makes I hopefully the clients that are looking at my services over someone else who's like, well, I have experience with my cousin's wedding. Not that that's a bad
Mm-hmm.
thing,
Yeah.
but if you're looking for someone that can help facilitate any logistical issue, cover any hurdle that might come their way on their event day. You want someone that has experience and
Mm-hmm.
education behind them, as opposed to, oh, everything's going to be okay. Well, that's not realistic
Yeah.
with weddings. And
Never.
having that continuing ed, and I do it through the knot as well.
Okay.
There's a couple of just high mainstream wedding industry only groups that provide
Mm-hmm.
continuing education
Right.
for this industry. And I just try to take advantage of all of it. So that way, when they're, again, if I'm only selling myself and my services, I have no tangible goods,
Mm-hmm.
then I
Right.
have to make sure I stand out from everybody else because I don't have a product to show them other than
Right.
a well executed event, which you can see by the awards and
Mm-hmm.
the additional education that I've won.
Yeah, that's a great point for sure. I feel like it just builds that trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like right off the bat, for sure. Everyone's got to start somewhere, but
Right,
um,
100%. And I was that
yeah,
person. I was like, okay, I'm going to
yeah,
help you because I love doing this. But it was, how do I take that from the hobby to the business? How do I
sure,
become, hey, how do I make this a viable full-time business and support myself? And that was
absolutely.
the educational part just pushed it right over the top as far as that element of it.
Right. And like an industry that has to continue education, like everything is changing every
Hmm.
other week, I'm sure, right? So
And
definitely,
it's not just trends. I
right,
think that's with weddings, obviously trends change from season to season. And obviously I look at that, but again, that works for wedding designers. Yes,
right,
I need to know what the trends are, but for me to do my job effectively, I need to know what tools can make me more efficient. What can I do to help my couples collaborate better on their timelines?
mm-hmm,
Yes, now there's sources for people
yeah,
to write speeches and their own
yeah,
ceremony vows because everybody's having their friends marry them, but they're afraid of what's going to come out of their mouth. So, who's got a product or
mm-hmm,
who has understand there's a need for that? And then is it something that, I need to share with my clients so that way I'm filling the needs that they have.
yeah. Now, for listeners, so you mentioned wedding designers, and you're more on like the other side of wedding designer, right? So, what would
Correct.
those two sides look like? Or if there's a third side too?
There's kind of like three avenues. There's wedding
Okay.
planners who can help from, start to finish, vision boards, da 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 da. And then there's wedding planners that do offer specifically like I do, where it's let's make sure we're partnering you with the right vendors. We're not looking at
Mm-hmm.
just price point and date availability, but personality. Who do I think would mesh well with my clients? And that means I have to get to know them on a personal
Yeah.
level. Then in regards to the timeline, I'm contacting all of their vendors to make sure what time hair makeup is. What time does photography need to be done by? What time is that wedding bouquet arriving so that
Yeah.
it can be part of the detail shots? So all of those logistical elements to kind of help facilitate the wedding day is my job to make sure all of that is happening and that all of the vendors are working collaborative as well.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you don't have kind of like an event manager of any kind, they're going to come to you as the person getting married,
Yep.
bridegroom, whatever our situation is. So if you don't have a point of contact who not only knows what your choices were, the conversations that happened at the meetings that you had during your planning process, how can they advocate for you? How can they enforce contracts
Mm-hmm.
that have been signed? I keep a physical copy because I'm old, so I like paper. And I'm like, yes, I have it on my phone, but if I need to reference something, I have printed it out and I keep it with me on the wedding day if we need
Right.
to double check something. So coordinators typically are just handle just the event day. as
Okay.
opposed to a wedding planner who kind of helps through the planning process. And now
Right.
your wedding planning designers, they not only kind of help with the overall vision, floral, color palettes, all of that, but usually they source the vendors that are helping create their vision. That doesn't include typically what time is hair and makeup, what time does the
Mm-hmm.
cake get delivered, who's putting the
Right.
flowers on the cake, is the shuttle showing up. So these are all elements outside of that, but
Right.
they're usually focused on just the vendors that are helping them put together the design
Yep.
aspect of it. They're not facilitating a lot of those extra elements in regards to the other vendors, the DJ, start time,
Sure.
announcements, things like that. They're only
Right.
handling those parts of it. But again, everybody's a little bit different
Yeah.
on, and that's how it's hard for couples to find, the right vendor because they don't
Yeah.
know what questions to ask and what they will
Sure.
or won't do for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. That's definitely all have, an important role in wedding planning. Now, do you feel like there are a lot of people that do all three, or is it becoming more compartmentalized these days?
I think it's more compartmentalized because there are vendors in our area that are kind of a one-stop for everything. They
Sure.
offer rentals, they offer a DJ service, they offer a photo booth, they'll offer floral, linen rentals. And then sometimes they do have an in-house coordinator. But again, that person is there to coordinate all of the things that they're bringing in,
Right.
right? And so there for I think it's most of us just find the niche that we like to do. And then we
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Yeah.
just remove. Back in the day, you might have had a planner that would set up table decor and run your timeline and do your
Mm-hmm.
rehearsal and tear your stuff down. But if we want to stay sane in this industry,
Right.
we stick to the parts that we love to do because then we don't get burnt out, right?
Yeah.
If we kind of, after quite a bit of experience, you realize, and I did at the beginning, I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
sure, I'll
Sure.
do that
Said
because you
yes to
wanted
everything.
experience. Right.
Yeah.
I said yes to everything, but I was like, that doesn't make me happy on the inside.
Sure.
Looking at design boards does not, no. I'm just like, that's great, wonderful. Who's going to put it out? I don't
Not
care
my
what
job.
you pick. To a certain extent, but
Yeah.
obviously, it's kind of I people could go round and round on colors on
Mm-hmm.
things, and I'm
Oh,
like,
I bet.
I just need to know what's coming, right? It's
Exactly.
and that because that doesn't make me happy on the inside.
Sure.
Making sure the vendor sets up and does their job and that my client is happy, 100% is what my
After
job
you're
is.
fulfilled. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Very cool. So I just wanted to go back to that term that we had put in the introduction, that Midwest destination, kind of how you
Hmm.
specialize in that. You don't really think of the Midwest being a destination spot very
No,
often, but tell me a little bit more about that and how,
a
you
hundred
help with
percent.
that.
Yeah, my very first wedding was actually a couple from New York City. The bride was
Okay.
originally from the Waterloo, Iowa area,
Mm-hmm.
and her fiance had contacted me through one of those websites. I think it was Wedding Wire. And I was like, after that event, I was like, I wonder if anybody else is traveling back home because
Right.
it's less expensive, or one of the spouses that once is coming back home. And then I kind of started tailoring my wording, on my
Mm-hmm.
advertising or, bio stuff to kind of direct that way because those are the ones that tend to value wedding planners more. They understand the
100%.
value of someone who knows all of the right vendors, that's going to value someone who has done the research for them.
Yeah.
And honestly, at the time when I was starting, I had two kids in 2 years. So, video chats, even though they weren't very common back then, that was really what I had most time for
Right.
because it was hard to leave my kiddos. It was
Me
much easier
too.
to be able to do phone calls and virtual and only have to meet once or twice before their event.
Absolutely.
And then, from I've had European basketball player, New York, California, Texas, South Carolina, I'm DC, Virginia, like it doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people have either grown up here in the Midwest, or like for those that are in the Chicago area, like I do,
Mm-hmm.
like Galena area. So a
Yep.
lot of people are leaving the city to come out to the western side of the state where it's a blip.
Yep.
There is nothing, out here, this direction from
Right.
that area that, as far as a vendor pool really to pull from with a certain
Yeah.
level of education and experience behind them like they would expect from a
Mm-hmm.
larger city. And so that's where that credibility kind of comes in. They can see consistency with reviews, with the awards, um, with what my clients are saying. And so, especially my couples that have come from outside of the area, I definitely encourage, like, please just talk about your planning experience as a person that's not local, because
Yeah.
that really just helps draw in those ones that are like, oh, I definitely need a person. Who am I going to
Mm-hmm.
pick? Because they don't, a lot of times maybe we've only met once in person over
Right.
a year and a half experience and everything's been virtual. How can I know I can trust them to fulfill my requests, make sure they don't run off with my money,
Yeah.
it's or that it's
It's
not just
scary.
again, someone that has a little bit more credibility behind them as opposed to
Yeah.
someone that just does it occasionally as a hobby or a
Sure.
part-time job, because a lot
Yeah.
of wedding industry people only do it part-time.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's kind of turned that necessity that a lot of other people didn't see into,
Hmm.
what works for your lifestyle, and now kind of something that you specialize in, right?
Absolutely. And I love it again because it opens up a lot of other cultures. Like I've gotten
Sure.
the
Yeah.
opportunity to do Southeast Asian weddings and Asian weddings,
Wow.
Jewish weddings. I have a couple right now that are originally from Togo. And so I've got my first African wedding coming up here
Wow.
next month. So I love the opportunity to work with other cultures, and they love to
Absolutely.
they know how to party, it seems. So I'm like, I'm all on this. I'm like,
Heck
this is not
yeah.
only can I make sure everything runs well, but I love to have a good time. So when that dance
Love
floor is
it.
open, you might see me out there.
Love it. Absolutely. Another thing to just kind of add to education as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
well, great. I kind of want to switch a little bit and just kind of talk more about weddings and trends that you're seeing and whatnot. I feel like a lot of couples are kind of trying to stand out a lot right now, do some more non-traditional things, or
Mm-hmm.
get the pic or the video for the Instagram, right? So,
Yeah.
what are you currently seeing right now that you're loving in the wedding industry?
I love that because of the Bridgerton show, everybody's about florals.
Okay.
Everything was so for a little pocket there, and it's still kind of trendy, the white and black and the baby's breath and maybe some of that dark green. And I have a few
Mm-hmm.
of those, but we're kind of transitioning out of the
Yeah.
boho, so excess like very pinpointed boho into that floral kind of springy summer look.
Okay.
And I love that just because aesthetic wise, it allows for more freedom as far as the look. Because when you have a
Yep.
specific style, it really is hard for venue.
Okay.
Not every There's a very finite, industrial vibe here in the Midwest. There's only so many that offer this type
Yeah.
of vibe, and it's hard to, people are fighting over those types of venues because there's not that many, right?
Okay.
So when you kind of create more of a looser, floral kind of warmy feel, I guess is a good way to
Yeah.
put it. It's easier to do in a lot of the
Yeah.
venues. And then my job is trying to help find the right spot, not again, I don't want to have
Sure.
to pick one place and then us invest a bunch in decor because it doesn't look anything like what you're hoping for,
Right.
because there's only so many places with brick exposed walls. There's only so many
Yep.
places with high ceilings. There's only so many white barns.
Yep.
So I appreciate that trend. I had my first request for a wedding content creator.
Oh,
I was talking to
wow.
my couple about video because I'm a strong, encourager for video. As somebody again 20 years ago didn't have a video, had one of
Mhm.
my coworkers taking video on the old digital cameras that had the floppy disk.
Oh
That's
my
all
gosh.
I have of my vows is on a floppy disk.
Oh,
And who's got something to read a floppy disk now?
right.
So, you know, um, I always speak from my own personal experience. I'm like, video is something you need to have in some sort
Right.
of shape or fashion. And then the content creators, I'm appreciating are getting those behind the scenes. Because again, I don't have time to do the TikTok video recording for you and your
Right.
bridesmaids. I love you to death. But number one, odds are I'm going to screw it up because
Right. Not what you
it's not my
specialize in.
jam. But
Right.
that's what they're looking for. I
Yeah.
understand who my future clients are and what they're looking for. And so
Hmm.
that was one of those things I was like, we have to add that to kind of our approved vendor list. We have to find a couple of
Yeah.
folks because if they're definitely not going to invest in the regular video of any kind. At least I know for sure they're going to want some sort of content creator. It still doesn't, for me, you want to capture those vows, you want to capture that first look that you can't get in photo. So I'm still a strong proponent of video, but I honestly, video is just one of those hard sells. They're like, if I have budget for, just like a wedding planner.
Right.
Like we're
Yeah.
the ones like, if you have budget for us or a live band, if you
Right.
have budget, then they'll make room if they have it in the end. And as a, for my full service clients, I'm like, after you booked your priorities, here's who
Right.
I'm going to tell you is your next priority. And here's the
Right.
reasons why.
Yeah.
For that. I don't the other thing I am starting to see is the cake thing. That's the third one I wanted to bring up is that a lot of people are still kind of doing that two-tier cake with extra desserts on the side type of thing. And they're not cutting it.
Right.
About half my couples are not cutting their cake. So I'm like, if you're not even going to cut it, then save your money and put
Why
it
do you
towards
even need it?
the open bar.
So
Right?
true.
Exactly.
That's what people
Well,
remember.
yeah, I'm like, if mom says if you aren't planning on cutting the cake, then let's find another dessert option that you are interested, whether it's a sundae
Right.
bar or, candy or whatever, save it for a late
Right.
night snack if you feel that's more needed than your dessert.
Mhm.
But I think maybe out of the last 6 weddings I've done, only one cut their cake. So
Right.
it's just not something that they don't feel that tradition as,
Mhm.
because the ones that are getting married now are from the group that are just like, we don't care.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just a different phase of life. It's the ones that are
Yeah.
maybe a little bit further out generationally that
Okay.
felt that strong push to have to do the cake cutting.
Right.
And now the next generation of parents are very much more neutral on
Sure.
traditions because
I'm
they
not gonna
didn't like
force
being forced
anything.
into them. And
Yep.
so now they're like, we don't care if you cut your cake because we didn't want to do it either. And
Mhm.
we did it just because we felt like we had to. So
Yeah.
definitely one of the none of those trends that we're starting to see go besides
Yeah.
the bouquet
Yes.
garter toss, which has been gone for a bit.
Oh, thank
Um,
God.
those were two for a while that have
Mm,
gone, but the cake cutting is definitely the new one that's
yeah.
kind of not feeling like it's necessary, or they have
Totally.
feel guilty if they don't do it. Embarrassing
Sure.
yourself, there that was easy to cut.
Yes. Thank
The
God.
parents were
Oh,
like, it got too raunchy or whatever, so they were like fine if people didn't do bouquet garter
true.
toss. But the cake cutting, they just really felt strong about. So I'm glad
It's
to
so
see again.
funny.
I don't want anybody doing anything they don't want to have to do.
Sure.
It's their day,
Right.
and the majority are paying for it themselves or a large
Uh-huh.
portion of it themselves. So unless mom's saying I'm buying this cake and you have to cut
Mhm.
it and feed it to
Sure.
each other, then it's a non-issue for me as
Absolutely.
far as whether it's in the schedule or not.
Absolutely. And that's why planners are so important too, to give insights like that and to make their couples feel comfortable and tell them
Hmm.
what other people are doing these days too, for
Yeah.
sure.
And sometimes just
Awesome.
advocate for the couple. Like if you need
Yes.
that neutral third party with our family members,
Yeah.
and that's where it's helpful because I can say, well, I can share with you this detail. We've only
Mhm.
had so many do this element, or
Yeah.
what, it's when there's, some information behind it and the choices that being made on feeling
Mhm.
or emotion, a lot of times it's a lot easier to sink in or translate over.
Yeah.
And that's again kind of one of those benefits of hiring, an educated wedding planner is that
Totally.
if you're having a hard time as a couple trying to navigate that family dynamic when you bring in a third
Oh,
neutral party whose job is
good.
just to advocate for you, but
Right.
also can help provide solid reasoning besides I just don't want to.
Mhm. Mhm.
It makes such a huge difference in just kind of putting to rest some of
Yep.
those maybe contentious items because,
Yeah.
there's some facts behind why we do or don't do a
Mhm.
certain element
Sure.
logistically or financially because it's not an emotional element for me. It's all about
Mhm.
how do we make this more cost efficient? How do we make it a lot easier
Sure.
process overall for guests, that type of thing.
Yeah, and someone who's not afraid to say those things too,
Mm-mm,
right?
nope. They're not my parents.
Yeah. Yeah, too funny. So what is one thing that you've seen, like just one super unique, fun idea that you have seen recently that you liked?
I really like the idea of having the officiant stand in the aisle. I have tried to
Oh, I haven't
talk
seen this.
my couples into doing this.
Okay.
So instead of them facing their backs to
Yes.
everybody, they have the officiant, kind of step into the aisle after everybody's processed down,
Yes.
and then they look out towards the guests. I
Nice.
really would love a couple to do that because number one, how much better would it be for photos
Mm-hmm.
for everybody? Because then they
Every
can,
photographer will love you.
yeah, every photographer will love you because they're not trying to do a side angle or things like that.
Right.
But then, it's just you invited those people to be there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Some have started doing swapping the sides. So like though the bride's on one side, the
Okay.
parents are on the opposite side of the aisle so that they can see them. So I
Sure.
have had a few
That makes
weddings do
sense.
that, and because if it's not in a church, they're not restricted to groom side, bride
Sure.
side situation. But I really would love to have somebody, stand in the middle,
Yeah.
have everybody staring at them, while they listen to their officiant. It's, but I think sometimes it's a security thing. They
Sure.
feel better like with their
Yeah.
backs to the crowd. But it would be, yeah, I think it'd be awesome. It
Yeah.
would be such
Yeah.
a different experience for everybody involved. They would be like,
I
they don't
love
know what
it.
to think to not look at the back of a person
Sure.
during a wedding.
Absolutely. What a concept.
Yeah. Let's just
Right.
move one person and all of a sudden it's a whole new game.
Yes, I love that. Very cool. And what is one just like total cringe-worthy thing that you've been seeing lately?
Um, I only get one.
Yeah.
Um, honestly, I'll tell the easiest one is when people do their seating chart by table number.
Okay.
Again, it's a logistical nightmare for a planner because
Okay.
I'm helping facilitate these guests find their name. And
Mm-hmm.
it's in fancy script or
Oh,
whatever.
oh,
And
yep.
you know what I mean? It's like I know a lot of the like Pinterest pictures or the Etsy's are all set up by table one, table two, table three,
Yeah.
but you can't find your name for your life.
Right. Okay.
So
So
please
you're,
do
yep.
them alphabetical.
I see.
You're bottlenecking up the entrance area. People
Yep.
have to look twice,
So true.
and sometimes there's so many names that we're literally like crouching down, trying to read their names on the bottom
Mm-hmm.
because, it's on a tall mirror or whatever, and it's like it goes
Right.
all the way to the floor.
Uh-huh.
So please do it alphabetical. It just makes way more sense for your guests to find their name by
Yep.
first name. They could do it by first name. I had a wedding last summer that did it
Sure.
alphabetical by first name. You don't have to do it by last name. Please just don't do it by table number.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
a
Great
nightmare
advice.
trying to find your seat.
Very great advice. And things that we don't think of, right? This is why we have you. Reason
Logistics.
number
It's like
700.
how do we make
We
it
need
easy for
you.
everybody?
What other advice can you offer couples like just starting out? What are the important questions they should be asking as well?
Absolutely. So the three tips I always tell a couple before they even start calling vendors, venues, whatever. First of all, they have to know how much they can afford. What
Mm-hmm.
is their not because budget's not a bad word. I'm like
Yeah.
everybody has a budget. But what is your heart attack number is what I call it. What number do you not want to see when this event is over?
Sure.
And then let's back that off by like a 0.5% or something.
Right.
So that way you feel a little bit more comfortable. Number two, they have to know their guest count. And that goes back to your budget. If 40% of your event is going to be your food and beverage and venue rental, and you only have, say, $10,000, you can't invite 200 people. There's
Right.
no way. You can't afford a venue and feed people and et cetera, et cetera. I know it's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lot of pushback on what the arm and the leg phrase, but it's just not realistic. So
Yeah.
if our budget is this and our head count is this, then before we proceed on to a date option, even, we need to figure out how to make those things kind of come
Yeah.
together. Because then when you have a date, which would be your third item,
Mm-hmm.
or a frame, a month or whatever that you're thinking that you want to get married, then when you start reaching out, it funnels a lot.
Yep.
It clears out a lot of the chaos because just sending out, what do you charge? Or, do you have my date? There's so many other questions that you should be asking vendors
Yeah.
to make sure that they're the right fit for you. But if
Yep.
you don't have those three basic things,
Okay.
you're wasting your time, and
Yep.
you're wasting the vendor's time
Totally.
and the venue's time.
Yep.
So don't call anybody till you know that.
Awesome.
And if
Yep.
you need help with that, that's why a wedding planner can help you. Like if,
Yep.
if you don't know where to start or, what questions to ask, that's exactly what our job is to help
Yeah.
you figure out, I don't know how much you can afford,
Mhm.
but, or what your budget is,
Mm.
but, there's a lot of things to take into account, or,
Yeah.
you know, just kind of get an estimate on what things realistically cost that I can help you with, whether it's
Mhm.
somebody who thinks they're going to save money by having a tented event at home,
Mhm.
or, I'm going to go with this venue that costs X amount of dollars, but they don't include any sort of food and beverage. So you could be better off at this nice hotel
Right.
because it includes, at least that includes the food and beverage, and
Sure.
you're spending the same amount of money. But,
Right.
it's, again, how do we want to allocate our funds more
Yep.
effectively type of scenario? Is it more that I want the look of the place, or
Yeah.
is it I really just need a place, but the food is more important to me?
Right.
So, our job is to help figure out what that is, because you don't know.
Absolutely.
Most couples don't know the answers to those questions, but they also don't know what questions to ask themselves
Mhm.
to narrow the search.
Right.
So that way they're not emailing 20 people on a Saturday and they're not hearing back, because wedding planners work the weekends or vendors
Mhm.
work weekends.
Yep.
And then they're waiting
Totally.
for 4 days for a response, and then they don't have any positives, and then they're
Yep.
frustrated. So
Yeah.
there's lots of ways to make the planning process stress free if we if we just check
There
those
you go.
boxes first.
Nice. Now that was kind of perfectly segued into my next question is what would you explain or describe your planning process as?
Absolutely. So for me, absolutely want to meet with you first. I
Mm-hmm.
understand price price is important, so is your date. But again, personality is a huge factor of this, and I'm a little excited and intense. So if I'm too much for you, maybe that's bad salesmanship, but I want to know that we're going to have
No,
a great
no.
time working together. I want
Yep.
you to feel 100% confident in me, because obviously you can read what I've done. You can Google me and see
Mm-hmm.
everything I've
Sure.
done and see, like, okay, based off of the reviews I've read or her experience or whatever, I think she might be a good fit for us. But maybe when we talk, you're just like, nope, I can't
Mm-hmm.
stand that she doesn't have an inside voice, or, you know, yeah, or maybe my process for helping a couple isn't what they're looking for.
Right.
So, I have a certain, process that I offer because it works well with my schedule and, with my certain clients. And
Mm-hmm.
so I try to tailor as much as I can to my couples, but sometimes maybe they're looking for just a little bit more than I can offer them. So I
Mm-hmm.
will refer them to another wedding planner
Sure.
who does offer that. Again, I'm only going to do what I love to do. And if and one of those could be like, oh, will you help us create a vision board and do this and do this? And do I have a wedding design certification? Absolutely, I do. Does it make me happy on the inside? Nope.
Nope.
But if you need help logistically figuring out how much you need for a tent, there's certain elements that I need
Mm-hmm.
from that design part to do my job
Mm-hmm.
effectively for my clients. But there's other parts I'm like, no, thank you. Let
Mm-hmm.
somebody else do that.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I'm a good fit for you, processes wise, personality wise, and then two, kind of through our get to know you phase. Um, you know, what are your priorities as a couple? That not just the things I talked about, but like, what are your top three must-haves? What are the top three things you don't want to see? If
Mm-hmm.
you've been in a wedding or attended a lot of weddings, what kind of, provide some feedback. So it's a really kind of, you know, yes, I want to hear about how you got engaged. Again, it's not, those are all great stories, but
Yeah.
for me to do my job effectively, I need to know what you hate, what you don't, what you
Mm-hmm.
love, because then I know how to tailor our working process together. The
Mm-hmm.
more I know about you as a couple, what your expectations are, then I know what to not waste my time looking at or waste your
Sure.
time providing information on. Because if I didn't ask you that you hated, you know, line dancing, then I'm going to be like, oh, well, the DJ's going to play the Cupid Shuffle and he's going to do
Right.
this and he's going to do that. And you did, and I never asked, you hate seeing line
Uh-huh.
dancing, at your, so it's really kind of I like to call it a collaborative process.
Yeah.
My goal is to make sure that nothing gets left undone, I guess is a good way to put it, or just, a lot of couples or brides I see on the forums and Facebook are like, oh, what did you forget, the week of your event? My job is to get you to that last 15 days and you don't even have to think about forgetting
Right.
anything. We've already wrapped it up. We've already
Yeah.
got a working timeline. We've already figured out your layout. All the vendors are confirmed. I'm their single point of contact and you're floating. Like,
Mm-hmm.
unless there's some sort of major emergency or, send me the people who are canceling last minute off your RSVP. I'll
Yeah.
take their names off the list. I'm
Yep.
not like, don't even fuss with that. Like, our goal is just for it to be a smooth, stress-free process the whole time,
That's awesome.
from start to finish.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. And I'm sure a lot of people really appreciate that and appreciate your honesty from the beginning too. And
Yeah, if you
most
don't want
people,
somebody honest, don't call this
yeah,
number.
yeah. We always say, what is it? Under promise, over deliver, right? So you don't want to
Exactly.
lie. You don't want to make
Nope.
them think that you are somebody else just to get the business. So I don't think it
Right.
is bad salesmanship, but
No, or that the expectation level of what I'm going to do.
yes,
Because again, a lot
100%.
of inquiries that I get, it's like, oh, well, will you provide this service or this service? And I'm like,
Right.
no, I
No.
appreciate you contacting me, but again, there's
Hmm.
probably another planner for you. And that's where it's
Absolutely.
community over competition, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to, take all the work just because they see me first because of the reviews or the placement on the Google page or whatever.
Right.
I may not be the good fit for them. The person on the
Yeah.
second page might be, and I'm not. If if they kind of meet the same level of standards as far as I do as work, and things like that, I'm going to gladly refer them to another planner because
Hmm.
it's just the way it should work in the wedding industry
Yeah.
in
I
regards
agree.
to fellow businesses that
Yep.
there's plenty of work to go around. Wedding planners are in short supply here in the Midwest. There
Yeah.
is a niche. Find what you love to do,
Yeah.
and there's space for all of us.
I love it. Yep. And that's kind of our main thing too that we were talking about even before was the pay it forward and kind of just lifting other people up too.
Yeah.
Right? There's
Mm-hmm.
no reason not to. So
Mm-mm.
that's awesome. Awesome. Now, just one kind of final question. Do you have any packages that you offer as well to couples?
Absolutely. So what during our consultation process, we tailor it to fit you. So yeah, we
Okay.
kind of if on our website we kind of have a basic like we can help you just do the ceremony, or we can help you with
Sure.
full planning, or excuse me, dry spot. The term day of coordination, you don't hear planners saying it anymore.
Right.
It's event management.
Yes.
It just makes sure that everything is wrapped up and done and checked in on. So there are still some planners that just do specifically day of coordination, but I found I couldn't do my job effectively. If I was coming in 30 to 60 days out, I was putting out all kinds of fires.
Hmm.
I'm like, did you read through this section in the contract? Did you notice this part?
Right.
And it was too late, to
Hmm.
change some of those things that maybe if they would have had more time. And I
Yeah.
understand, and again, it's budget. Not everybody can afford that. But with the event management, not only do you just get monthly check-ins to see, hey, how are things are going and some planning tools, but then I attend all of the final vendor meetings
Nice.
with you and your vendors. So I know what you guys said. I know what I need to make sure is enforced. And, I can't do that with just only a 30 kind of day window.
Hmm.
One of the things I know am offering through our special today is the wedding coaching package. So it's
Hmm.
not just a consultation for us to get to know each other, but if you already are working on certain things or you have contracts and you want me to look them over, during that free wedding coaching package, I'll
Yeah.
absolutely do that. You can take pictures with your phone and email them to me or whatever. And then we can even put together a rough timeline just to kind of make sure you're on the right path.
Nice.
Just seeing kind of what a planner can do for you, within just an hour or two
Yeah.
can make such a huge difference as opposed to you
Hmm.
trying to maybe figure out those things on your own. You usually, most couples, when I've talked to them, they've already been planning on their own and they're struggling. They're like
Yeah.
hitting a wall, and that's why they're calling me.
Yep.
So, and the goal, and I always tell them that this is like, you've walked away, number one, knowing more about the planning process. So even if you
Mhm.
don't hire me, you've got something to go forward
Wow.
with. And number two, I've already answered the questions that you've been stressing out for,
Mhm.
for months on, because you didn't know what to do. And if I can do that within a 30 to 40-minute conversation, just think about how the rest of this process can go. When you have
Right.
an educated, experienced source to ask your general questions to, and it could just be as simple as, how do I put the wording on save the dates?
Right.
There's all kinds of wording on save the dates for no kids and whatever, but they still want
Yes.
another confirmation that this is the right wording, or
Yeah.
that just level of security that they are making the right choice. That's exactly what a good wedding planner will help you do, is
Mhm.
just make sure that you feel confident in your choices, and that when you get to your wedding week, it's going to have smooth sailing. And so through that wedding coaching package, we can get you started off at least on the right foot with some extra tools.
Very cool. Thank you. Thanks for offering that. That's awesome. Now, where can everybody find you? Socials, website? What's the best way to
100%.
reach out?
So website is planstressfree.com. It just got a fresh update that is launching tomorrow
Ooh,
morning.
awesome.
So yep. So I'm super excited about that. Uh, Instagram is stress free weddings. Facebook plan stress free. I apologize. I am not on TikTok.
That's what I hear everybody say. It's a
it's
lot. It's a
it's
lot.
hard enough to do the reels.
Exactly.
But one of the things I always like to be sure anybody knows is that when you visit my website or you visit my social media, it is my content. I do not
Mhm.
post anything that isn't my own clients or details from their weddings. If for some
Yep.
reason I am sharing something, I always make sure that that vendor is tagged, because there's a lot of other
Mhm.
educational programs and things that have good tips and things, and I always share those.
Sure.
But if it's in my feed, it's my work. And I think that's important, because that's
Mhm.
not always easy to tell. There's a lot of places that people can source
Yep.
content these days. And so, if you see that couple on my website, they have been my client. If you see
Yep.
that, decor thing, I may not have, that's not my vision, but I can make sure that that looks like the way it's supposed to.
Sure.
In regards to maybe the florist made a change or whatever. Like, I can make
Yeah.
sure that your stuff looks the way that you expected it to look, even if it's not, personally something I put together.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for hopping on today, Brianne. And we will talk to you soon.
Thank you, Tina.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Eventful Endeavors, Secrets to Crafting the Perfect Celebration. We hope to have left you with some actionable ideas for your own event. If you like the show, please subscribe and definitely leave us a review. We read every comment. So until next time, happy planning and see you soon on Eventful Endeavors.